In this video, I will be breaking down and explaining how I got the tone I used in my Smells Like Teen Spirit guitar cover video. First of all, I can't thank you enough for all the positive comments and feedback I've gotten regarding this video. When I started my Nevermind tone recreation series, I initially wanted to go in track listing order, so Teen Spirit was the first song I tried. I had a really hard time getting near the tone and in frustration shelved it and decided instead to work on whatever tones I found I could get to more easily instead of going in track listing order. After recreating 4 songs, I went back to Teen Spirit and it still took me a long while. It was such a relief when I finally got near it, because I was starting to think that with my setup, I just simply wouldn't be able to do it. I guess I'm sharing all that to say that this tone in particular took a lot of time and work to recreate, so your kind words really do mean a lot. I can't say how thankful I am to have found a community of fellow Nirvana gearheads who are as nerdy and as obsessive as I am about Kurt's gear and tone. I'll first go over what gear I used and my settings, and then I will go over what's happening in my audio software Pro Tools, because there is a fair amount of studio magic going on. The guitar I'm using is my Fender Competition Mustang. This is not a vintage 1969 Competition Mustang. This was my wife's wedding present to me. The seller was extremely vague, and the only info there was with the pictures of the guitar was Fender Competition Mustang Cobain mod. When I got the guitar, it had Seymour Duncan hot rails in it, and the paint and stripe looked like they weren't original. I searched the serial number and was actually amazed to find that it's a 1993 Mustang that was made in the Fuijgen factory. That's the same year and same factory of Kurt's Jag-Stangs and Jag-Stang. So this is a 1993 Fuijgen Mustang that was repainted and refinished to look like Kurt's Compstang. The hot rails are one of my favorite pickups, but when Kurt recorded Nevermind, his Competition Mustang still had the stock single coil bridge pickup. This was verified by Earnie Bailey in the info that was a part of the Julian's auction page for Kurt's Compstang. He said that the hot rails and 2-pneumatic bridge were both put in 1992. To get closer to how Kurt's Mustang sounded when recording Nevermind, I took out my hot rails and put in a stock Mustang bridge single coil pickup. It's been fun, as it does now sound closer to Nevermind, but when I'm done with recreating the album tones, I won't be able to put the hot rails back in fast enough. I greatly prefer them to the single coil. I do want to address something quick in regards to the hot rails in Kurt's Compstang. In my late 1991 Nevermind Tour Tone video, I shared speculation that Kurt's Compstang had neck hot rails in the bridge position. I thought this because the Julian's auction page for the guitar had just gone live when I was editing that video, and we were all surprised to see it included a Seymour Duncan neck hot rails case. That had to mean that's what he had in his Mustang, right? After all, he had the Seymour Duncan 59N humbucker in the bridge position of his Vandalism Strat, so him having a neck pickup in the bridge position wasn't too crazy of a theory. I thought this was the case and shared my opinion as such in that video. A few months later though, I got an email from a viewer saying he had some information he wanted to share in regards to Kurt's Competition Mustang. He had been in contact with Earnie Bailey and shared this exchange that he had with him.
Recently, someone made a video claiming that the Duncan hot rails pickup in the bridge position was actually a neck pickup. Is this correct? This would change the phase and polarity. If this is true, what would be the intended effect of doing this?
No, it's not. The old pickup was just thrown in a random plastic pickup box that was kicking around the shop. A neck model might have been used for one of the Smasher guitars, but not the Mustang. Also, today, in a heartbeat, I would advise pairing a neck model in the bridge alongside a stock pickup in the neck to match the output levels. It's also the better sounding option in a high gain signal chain, in my honest opinion. Back then, my thinking was rigid in this area, and would have stuck with the proper pickup for that guitar. The Smasher Strats were generally earmarked for endless nameless and destruction, and would have gotten a neck model if the music store was sold out of bridge models.
So we have confirmation from Kurt's guitar tech himself that Kurt's Competition Mustang had a bridge Seymour Duncan hot rails in it. I apologize for unknowingly spreading misinformation, and a huge thank you to the viewer who contacted me and shared this information. Here are the pedals, amp, and settings I used. I used my 1992 Boss DS1 and Electro-Harmonix small clone. Here are the settings for those two. The amp I used is my Fender Tone Master Twin Reverb. Here are my amp settings. Both of these pedals, this amp, and other gear and parts that Kurt used are available in my Amazon storefront. My storefront will be linked here and in the video description. So that's the gear I used, but there is a fair amount of studio magic happening in my audio software Pro Tools, and I will now break down exactly what is going on. I double tracked the guitar except for the clean intro and the solo. For every other part, the guitars are panned hard left and right. What you visually see in the video is the first take, which is in the left channel. I've got the guitar tracks broken up into several sections: clean intro, distortion for the main riff and choruses, solo, solo feedback, clean verses, and distorted verses. Each section is mixed differently. So let's start at the beginning and work our way through the song. For the clean intro, I've got a basic channel strip EQ plugin for general EQ adjustments, Kramer tape plugin for stimulated tape warmth, and the SSL EQ strip for more specific adjustments on the EQ. Here's how it sounds with these plugins off and then on. I felt like it was still missing something, so I duplicated the track and ran that through a guitar amp simulator plugin. I shaped that track to have an aggressive, almost bitey kind of high end. Here's how it sounds on its own. I have that mixed pretty low, but it does add quite a bit to the intro sound. Not as much is going on for the distorted chorus parts. There's a channel strip EQ plugin, and the one knob fader, turned up pretty high to give it a layer of thick low end. I've also got some reverb on it. There's reverb on every guitar track except for the clean intro. I was happy with the overall sound, but I felt like it wasn't sitting in the mix very well. So I bussed those tracks over to a separate aux track that I used for parallel compression. That track is being compressed pretty heavily with the DBX 160 compressor. That's my favorite plugin to use for parallel compression. Again, this is mixed subtly, but it does help it sit in the mix a lot better. Alright, so for the clean verses, I've got a channel strip EQ plugin again, and this time also the double 2 plugin, which artificially doubles it. Even though this is already double tracked, I felt like this gave it just a little more presence. I felt like this part still needed a little more bite. So just like with the clean intro, I have a copy of that track running through the Guitar Amp Simulator plugin. This again is mixed in subtly. The reverb on these tracks though is turned up pretty high, to match the reverb levels that this part has on the album. The distorted verses have the least amount of processing. The only thing I have on these is the one knob fader again, to give it a similar boost in low end like the distorted chorus parts have. Last but not least is the solo and the feedback tracks. The feedback track is where the most processing is happening. For the solo track, I've got the Doubler 2 plugin on it. I didn't realize until I was deep in mixing and my guitar setup was taken down that the solo sounds like it was double tracked. So this was my way of doubling my take. After that is a channel strip EQ plugin. It was really important to me to try to replicate the long feedback that lingers throughout the third verse. I record using my twins direct out while having the speakers muted, as I am almost always recording when my daughters are sleeping. As you can imagine, you can't get long feedback when the speaker is muted. Here's the longest I managed to get. Definitely not good enough, so I had to rely on some studio tricks. I duplicated the track to just have that last note. I took the little bit of the note ringing that I got, and I'd stretched it out with the Time Compression Expansion Audio Suite plugin. It basically slows down the track, so it completely lost its chorus wobble and sounded like this. Sounds weird and fake, right? So I added a chorus plugin and tried to match the small clone's wobble as best as I could. After that is a channel strip EQ plugin on the same settings as on the normal solo track. And finally, another reverb track, and I automated the entire track to get quieter and subtly louder throughout the entire third verse. That is how I replicated Smells Like Teen Spirit's studio guitar tone. Even after all that, I'm honestly not 100% satisfied. I can hear parts I wish sounded closer to the actual tracks, but this is as close as my setup will get me, and overall, I'm pretty happy with the result. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out my other Nirvana gear videos.